Good to know. Okay, well, we can begin. Welcome to the November edition of the Exeter Conservation Commission. I'll read our preamble and then we'll get started. Good evening. As the chair of the Conservation Commission, I am declaring that an emergency still exists, and I am invoking the provisions of RSA 91A23B. Federal, state, and local officials have determined that gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community in its continuing efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19. In concurring with their determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during the emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I welcome members of the public accessing this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. Thank you for your patience. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance of the commission. When each member states their name, please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during the meeting. And we'll have Sally start us off.
Hey, I'm just going to call people in the order that they're showing up on my screen. Carlos?
I am present and I'm alone.
And Sally Ward is here, present and alone at the moment. Drew?
I am here and I'm alone.
Ginny?
I'm here and alone.
Nick?
Here and I'm alone.
Dave? Short?
Here and alone.
Julie?
You're mute.
You're muted. We see you. Bill?
Yeah, I'm not, my fingers don't always match what's on my screen. I'm Julie Gilman, Select Board Rep to the Conservation Commission, and I am in my office alone.
Thank you. Bill?
This is Bill Campbell, and I currently have my wife temporarily here and 2 dogs.
Lindsay?
I'm here and I'm alone.
John?
Don Clement, and I'm here in the room alone.
Trevor?
Government Matera, and I have my 3-year-old son in the room with me.
Kristen Murphy?
Kristen Murphy. I'm here and alone at the moment, but have several passerbys coming through.
And Kristen Osterwood?
Here, but alone at the moment.
And we have guests, Wayne Morrill. And Jim Gove.
Hi.
And who, do we have another? I think that's, no, Chris Lane. Those are our panelist guests. I think we've got everyone.
Okay, thank you.
We do have, Drew, the question, we have 6 voting members present, so we need to select an alternate who will be voting. And by tradition, we'll discuss this later, I assume, but by tradition it would be Ginny. So Ginny, you'll be voting tonight?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, we're off to a good start here. Are there any, I see there are a few public folks on the meeting here. Are there any public comments that aren't related to a specific agenda item? I'll open the floor if there are any public comment for non-agenda item comments. Otherwise, we will move right into the first action item.
If you do wish to speak as a member of the public, you need to raise your hand, and then they'll admit you into the section where you can talk and we can hear you.
And if I could just make a note, if you are calling on a phone, to raise your hand, it's press *9.
Okay, so *9. And it's not physically raising your hand, it's the Zoom raise your hand function. So we're all clear. I believe the attendees are going to be here to talk about the first agenda item. So since I don't see any hands up, we'll get started with that. Our first item is the minimum impact expedited wetlands application. It's a state NHDES wetlands application for 569 square feet of emergent wetland fill of a human-made farm ditch for grading associated with the construction of a single-family home on Brentwood Road. And I believe we have Jim Gove here, or is there anyone else who would be presenting on this one? Jim?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So Paul Carrigan might be listening in, and Christian Smith might be listening in, but I know they have other meetings in Newmarket tonight, so I think it's me.
Okay. Do you want to present on this? And if there's public comment, we'll do that after your presentation, and then the commission can discuss further.
Sounds great.
Okay.
So this is a project that was called Bramble Meadows, and it was actually initially a Joe Fell's own project. And I don't think it ever actually came to the commission because there was no wetland impact. The buffers, there's a wetland that was in the middle, well, not in the middle of the field, kind of on the front of the field, and that was avoided. And then there was a man-made ditch that ran through the back of the field. Now, at the time, I told Joe, I said, look, I said, that man-made ditch is probably going to be a problem when people start putting in houses. And he just didn't want to get involved with a dredge and fill. So it was left. And as I predicted, when it was sold, the subdivision was sold to Chinberg Development, LLC. They started putting in houses, and I knew the grading wasn't going to work, and it didn't work. This ditch sat right square in the front of the lawn, and there was hardly any way to get the driveway in without, impacting this ditch. The interesting thing is this ditch actually stretched across the front to the back side of the property, but only a portion of it actually developed into wetland. It was just this lineal feature that went across and dumped into the stormwater drainage system for the town through a culvert. So fast forward to today, they're in the process of building out Bramble Meadow, and sure enough, the house that was going to be there simply can't fit with the grading without impacting this ditch. Now, it is a man-made ditch, so therefore it doesn't fall under your ordinance. And so it never did have a buffer to it. And so basically, we actually had contacted the DES earlier because this ditch was going to be recreated going around the back of the house. In other words, that function of that ditch was not going to be removed. It was actually going to be recreated by going around the back of the house and then draining exactly the same place it drains today. So there's no concern about whether or not we're going to flood anybody out. In fact, if anything, the swale that's going to be created is more effective. And I actually thought it would fall under the exemption of 482A, :3, section 4B, where it says a man-made ditch can be altered to maintain its usefulness. Well, Evan Lewis decided it didn't fit. So he said to me, well, just do it as a minimum impact. I mean, it's a small thing. He said, it has no function and value because, for the most part, it's water hydrology is going to be removed anyway because of the swale. The swale is actually going to pick up all the water that was going to it and redirect it around the backside of the house. So it's not going to have the hydrology. I guess theoretically we could wait a while for it to go away, but Chinburg doesn't want to have this thing here that would fall under a potential wetland impact at some future date for some future house. So we've applied for it. It's as you said, it's 569 square feet. I don't know if Kristen, if you want to, I mean, we have pictures that show what this ditch looks like. And I don't know, Kristen, do you have that available to show the folks the dredge and fill or not?
Yeah, I could get it.
I have it. The photos.
Oh, okay.
Provided.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the folks here, the photos would be pretty telling as to what the heck it looks like. And since so it's that right there. That's what it looks like. It's right along the line there. Yeah. So it's that line right in front of that house, and you can see the swale that's going around the back of the house. And that's where the cursor is. That's where it is. And the swale is going to pick it up and take the water away. I had a Christian Smith from Beals made sure that the design was not going to in any way put any water onto any of the abutters, that this was going to be the same design intent that was before. This house is built up higher, but basically it's essentially going to be the drainage pattern, as you can see by the arrows there, are going to continue on down around to that other swale, and it will take over the function. And so that's what it is going on here. So I don't know. It's a pretty small thing, but I'm glad to answer any questions.
So this is what it looked like.
Yeah, I mean they actually cleared those trees to the left. There it is, right there. That's a better picture of it. That's it. That's what it looks like right there. Today, I went out. There was a concern. Kristen had contacted me and said, gee, that a butter called and thought they had actually already impacted the ditch. Well, I went out and the trees on the left-hand side there had all been cut because in preparation, well, not all of them, they left a buffer, but to the abutters. But they went and cut that in preparation for, eventually a house going there. So it looks a little different. And in fact, I refreshed the flags when I was out there just to make sure that everybody knew where it was. We did see a stump pile that was not in the ditch, but it was upslope from the ditch. And Paul said, I'll move that in case, because the perception is maybe they think that's in the ditch. So, but it wasn't. But he's going to move it out of that area. So that's, and you can see the construction is ongoing right now of the road. So that's about what we got.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Why don't we move to any public comment related to this, if there is any? For some reason, I'm sharing my screen, so I can't see the hand raised feature.
It looks like someone named Dan has their hand raised.
Okay, can we get Dan? Would you like to speak, Dan?
I would like to.
Oh, you're unmuted.
I'm sorry, my camera does not seem to be working. So I would like to just kind of begin with construction of a road, which is rather.
Could you have Dan identify himself for the
one more time? I'm sorry.
Can you state your full name and for everyone's benefit here?
Sure. My name is for Columbus Avenue. And again, I apologize. My camera I thought would be working and it's not.
That's okay.
Thanks. So the last comment made by the person who was speaking before me said the construction of a road. My understanding is that there are to be two driveways, two shared driveways. So that in itself is a little bit of a concern. The other is that I did raise an issue around that part of that ditch or swale had been filled, and I raised that with Dave Sharples, and someone from the town, whose name I'm afraid again I don't know, went out. Supervisor who did say yes, some had been filled as much as 10 feet, and that would be rectified. Again, I'm hearing from the last speaker, Mr. Gove, that is not the case. So there is certainly some folks with the town and with whomever is doing the work there. The other is that I understand when Gove Environmental was out and did the initial work there, that small area was listed as a wetland. So I've lived in the home that abuts this property for 30 plus years. And over that time, I've observed that swale or ditch used to run around the entire woods. And over time, through a neighbor who used to dump his leaves there and numbers of branches that would fall and leaves in there, so that part of that ditch used to fill. And I shared a picture with Kristen, several pictures, and unfortunately, again, I was pretty late in getting that to her, so Kristen, I do apologize for that. But that because of swale, that ditch that goes around it, the water now goes into the woods and floods it quite severely. And all of that runoff over the time that they've been applying for this. So my concern is that this is not just a simple little ditch, and because they are now changing the whole grading piece of that with this home that will now be at least 3 feet above the grade of the existing woods, that there is going to be some irreparable damage onto my property. And once that's there, and once the home is in, there's no changing it. There's no going back and saying, oh, we made a mistake. I'm sorry, Dan. So I really would like to have some understandings that this is not just a useless ditch, which used to, again, as the gentleman said, run into the drainage over on off of Spruce Street. That's now been taken away, and because of some additions to a home over there, that also the continuation of that ditch or swale was filled in. So I'd like to understand how that's going to impact my home and the property.
So just to add a little, Dan, I'm not sure who you were referring to with the town who went out and determined there was 10 feet of fill.
So I did interrupt just for a second, Kristen. I'm sorry. So it was, and again, I don't know the name, but Dave seemed to imply that this was a person who does regular checks on whether the builder is complying with the specifications that they are supposed to comply with. And then he reported back to Dave that it was indeed 10 feet. And as I said, when Dave responded to me, none of this is in writing, unfortunately. Dave responded to me that when the field supervisor had said either to him or to this person who did it that the builders would rectify the situation, was the exact quote.
So we do have planning board inspectors who inspect properties while they are under construction. I did not hear a report that anyone confirmed that. That's why I reached out to Jim Gove to get his perspective. I hadn't seen the project site for the man-made wetland. I had walked the other section that was protected prior to construction, so it was really difficult to see in the field where boundaries were. I did report to Dave that there was grading in the proximity of it, but you know, there could potentially be fill, but I couldn't confirm or not whether there was. So I did alert Eben Lewis that we had a report of an abutter with concerns of fill, and he had said DES would address it through the application process. And then just in terms of the photos that you submitted, Dan, I just wanted to let you know I did share your email with the commission, so the commission members did see those. I do have them and could share them if the commission wishes, but I just want to be sure that our focus here tonight is on the wetland itself. This project went through the planning board process, received planning board approval, and then following approval, the plans for grading had changed. So Dave Sharples is having the applicant return to the planning board to address the differences between what was approved and what they're proposing to do now. So, you know, I encourage you to talk about everything under your purview, and I don't want to limit that conversation, but we do have some kind of sidebars here that we need to keep the discussion within. And so the grading and drainage will be discussed at the planning board level. But if you have questions to Jim or others about how that affects the wetland or the wetland function or process, that's appropriate for tonight.
Well, I think I've already proven the numbers of things again. So Jim mentioned construction of a road. That is something that he put out there on the floor. And the other is that, again, that drainage, because of the changes in the grade, just so once this ditch swale is now, if it is accepted by this committee that says, yes, you can go ahead and fill it, then that already gives the planning board weight that says we can now move ahead because the commission has already said that, yes, you can fill it. So then their hands are tied as well of how that changes, it would seem to me.
Is it my turn?
Jim, sure. Why don't you have a minute to respond?
Sure. So a couple things here. What hasn't happened yet is the swale that's going to replace the ditch has not been constructed yet. That's the first thing. The second thing is that he is correct. Dan's correct. The ditch went across the whole side of the field, but there was only a portion of the ditch that had created hydric soils. So that was the portion we flagged out as wetlands because that's the criteria. There was the stump pile or the filling, about 10 feet, did go into the ditch, but wasn't in the ditch part that is a hydric soil. So it did go into the ditch, and the contractor is going to remove that if he hasn't already. I was told that they were going to try to do it immediately when I was out there. So the issue is there is a ditch. It is going to be replaced by another ditch swale. The portion that is jurisdictional does not have fill in it at this point in time. But there was a portion of the ditch upslope and to of it northeast where a stump pile was placed.
That helps clarify what's going on, Jim. Thank you. Does anyone on the commission have any questions for Dan or Jim?
Well, is this, Jim, is this new swale going to alleviate the problem that Dan's speaking about of water going onto his property?
That swale was actually part of the original design and it was designed specifically so that it would not go on to the abutting property. So that swale is not a new swale, okay? That swale was always there. And so I do know that Christian has essentially expanded that swale a little bit, but that swale was always there and was always designed specifically to keep the water off the abutting properties. That swale has not been built yet. Okay, just to be clear, that swale has not been built yet. But the design intent, the swale was there before when the planning board approved it, and the swale is still there, the new swale that's going to be built.
So it's my understanding that water is not allowed to leave the property.
Correct.
And that's a planning board regulation, and it is not really our up to us at this point tonight. We're here to talk about this wetland feature that is being requested to be filled in. Is there, besides water storage, is there any value or functional aspect to it, Jim?
No, it's so small. Obviously, it was man created. It functioned pretty much like the side of the field. And it doesn't have any of the other, it doesn't have wildlife habitat. I mean, you know, as with anything, you can find wildlife in a place that still has trees and stuff like that. But I'm talking about wetland wildlife habitat. It doesn't have that. It's not a vernal pool. It does not have nutrient or it does not have sediment toxic retention. So essentially it is just a water conveyance feature.
Drew, I'm not sure if you can see it with your screen being shared, but Lindsay has a question and then Don has a question.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't see that. Okay, Lindsay.
I was just going to, as part of the minimum expedited wetlands permit, I see for the New Hampshire Division of Historic Resources form is attached to it. I was just wondering if they had responded yet. I see this is just the submittal form itself.
Not yet.
Okay.
Nope.
Good question. Thank you, Lindsay. This is Lindsay's last meeting, and I didn't say that before since we officially started, and we're gonna miss Lindsay. So she has good questions and has been a great resource for us. So maybe we'll say something else at the end. Don?
Yes, thank you. I'm Don Clement. I'm trying to get my perspective here. Dan, the abutter, says he lives on Columbus Ave. Can we bring up a plan set here that kind of gives us an idea where this is in reference to Dan's property? Because I can't see it on what we have up on the screen now. And maybe you can point out where his property is in relation to this area that we're trying to permit. That's not showing it to me. Didn't we have a better plan set that describes that area?
Okay.
We've got.
Here's Columbus Ave. Can you see that?
No.
Yeah, it's on the right-hand side, yep.
On the right-hand side. And our ditch we're talking about is this right here.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, Dan, I don't know if you want to identify which.
Yeah, so I'm in the property that is 63. Yep, right where that's 86.
You are right here.
That's correct.
Okay, so if we go back to this other plan that we were just looking at, you are this one right here on the bottom of the screen.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And so if you look at that, so again, and Jim agrees that while that small little swale is in front of the proposed home, looking at it, I'm seeing, so it used to go right where that garage is, across that, and then slope back, coming towards my property. And that used to take the water in the beginning years that I was here, around the woods and then out to the Spruce Avenue drainage, which again, a lot of that has been plugged over the years.
Hey, Andrew, if you could bring back that other one you had, the other plan you had, it might be the one, yeah. That, if you take a look at you see how the ditch goes right along the tree line? So if you extend that ditch both directions along the tree line, you can see that ditch actually was picking up water right at the tree line, where the tree line goes to the 6387 lot. And so it was flowing basically from right to left. And it went down, and then it continued on along the tree line out to the catch basin.
This catch basin right here on Spruce?
Yeah. So basically, what Dan's got is he's got this the ditch that starts nearly on his property, and then carried on through and into the wetland portion of the ditch, and then that ditch kept on going to the catch basin. So that's how it all kind of comes together as far as how Dan has been impacted over the years by the ditch here.
So thank you for bringing up the better maps. So if the ditch starts at Dan's property, should we ensure that the project makes sure that carries the water from the ditch area in his property away from his property like it has in the past? And how do we do that?
Yeah, that's why.
Is that what the crux of the question is?
I think so, and that's why I asked Christian to look at it carefully, and he had given me a statement, and he had said that it would in fact work to basically exactly the same way as it was designed the first time around. And unfortunately, Christian's not here to be able to say that in his PE speak, but that was what he was showing me. He also, on that other plan, the plan that shows the direct impact, he has Andrew. I don't know if you can find that next one, the plan that has the direct impact. Yeah, here we go. If you look closely there, he has these arrows, which are supposedly the direction of flow of the area, and it's being directed down into that swale. Now, whether that swale should be extended further, I mean, I think he has a couple of trees in there to be planted, those 3 trees. But whether or not that swale ought to actually wrap around the backside of that house to ensure more, that's a grading thing for Christian. So I'm not sure I can answer that. He seemed to indicate that it would absolutely work, but I'm not the engineer, so.
Okay, and I'm just seeing this now. Right here, there's a culvert that's connecting the end of the swale, this new swale, all the way over through here, into this, catch basin.
Correct.
So this water will be conveyed under the driveway road,
right,
from the swale. Yeah. It does seem like from here, just looking at this, and it also depends on where the roof is. Now, this is this big house that's already been constructed out there?
No, this is no, because this, okay. Otherwise we'd be in violation.
Okay. So depending on, where the roof is falling and whether they have gutters or not, and where the water is going to come off the house, that could make a big difference. If this has a big shed roof and all the water's coming off the back of the house, and then you see the contours coming that way, I don't see how water wouldn't.
He said he wrote something about that. He said the drip edge will be elevated based upon the higher topo of the foundation, allowing more infiltration, larger separation of the water table. If that makes any sense. Anyway.
So all this is well and good, but this really is what the planning board should be discussing. Unfortunately, I like these discussions, so I'm easily sucked into this because I think it's interesting. But I think we need to decide if we're okay with this wetland being filled or not. Period.
So if I may.
And then vote on that if we're willing, and if we are. Really, the question is, do we want to give up our intervener status on their expedited wetland fill permit with DES?
I just to maybe add some additional information that might help in this discussion. Maybe, Jim, do you know about the timing? Like, is there commitment to not address the wetland fill or grade in the wetland area before it's gone through the planning board process?
We aren't. I mean, in terms of the actual dredge and fill we have here, I mean, when we filed it, you're still within the time frame of needing a response, I believe. So.
Yeah, I guess my point is, though the commission doesn't have a role in reviewing drainage, they do have a role in timing of approval for this, for the wetland fill. And so perhaps if there was a commitment through the planning board process that the wetland fill wouldn't occur before, would not occur before the installation and construction of the drainage ditch at the back, then you won't have this disconnect and water continuing to flow toward the abutter before it's been constructed.
Oh, I think that's clear. I mean, this grading has to be, and I don't think I knew this because I was not involved in the actual planning board process. But there was a condition that was placed on the subdivision that basically said, if you change the grade, you have to go back to the planning board. And I don't think even Paul Carrigan knew about that condition. And so this house absolutely cannot be constructed or even begin constructed in any way until it goes to the planning board. So there's just no question that this will not, whatever happens tonight, if you approve it, that's great, or whatever you want to do with it. But honestly, nothing's going to happen until it goes through the planning board process.
Can we approve the fill and also recommend to the planning board that they look at the grading or to just give them the advice. We shouldn't be advising, but recommend that they look at the grading. I'm sure they will because they can't have water going off the property, but we could throw our 2 cents in.
Yeah, I think Christian has already filed with the planning board. He told me I think he's filed with the planning board. I mean, maybe Christian knows better than I do, but I thought he said he had already sent in the paperwork to go to the planning board. But yeah, we would welcome the Conservation Commission weighing in to say, be very careful with looking at the drainage because obviously I don't want to be involved with a dredge and fill that ends up putting water on somebody else's property either. So.
Okay, those would be separate things. We could, the state wetland permit and a memo to the planning board. Those would be separate actions, but certainly we could do that. Sally, did you have a question?
I did have a question about what is the specific thing that we need to decide on? And I'm looking at Kristen's suggested motions, and it seems to me we're leaning in the direction of the second, which we have reviewed this application and recommend that the wetland application be approved with conditions, and the conditions being the certainty or the careful attention to the water not going into the abutter's property. And that seems to be the major concern of the abutter, which I understand that concern, and we don't want any jeopardy going to abutters' properties because of the development. So is that the direction that we're leaning?
That would be my idea. I'd agree with you.
So, but for expedited permit applications, you either sign the document and it gets processed in a faster approach, or you choose not to sign it, but could still recommend approval. So I just want you to be aware that it is a timeline difference.
Actually, we submitted this as expedited, but we have, it's already been filed with the state. So now it would just be done as a standard application, not an expedited. So therefore, you don't have to sign anything.
So let's, because you're still waiting on, there's other things holding this up. We are not the.
Well, yes.
Exactly. We're not the choke point here.
No. I mean, you're a part of the process, but a part of a very real process, right?
Okay, therefore, I would lean to agree with Sally then that we don't need to sign this and we can let it become a standard timeline and make a conditional statement regarding the drainage. I guess my concern about the drainage, there's two different things here, which I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the regulations require that water doesn't leave the property, correct? But I think what Dan, the abutter, is indicating that his property was actually draining onto this property. So he was benefiting. He has
that's not true at all. No,
not true.
No. The water was draining from this building site onto my property. And as a matter of fact, once this swale that ran around the woods over time had been filled in, that whole lot, 93.5, where that house sits, was filling with water and then draining into my property. Like, I'm talking a foot deep back there and then onto my property. In some places, at least a foot deep. I had ducks in my yard.
Okay.
So my concern here again, just if I may, and I'm sorry to be rude by interrupting you, but that once the agreement is that swale can be filled, and this house, which again goes to the planning board, is twice the size of any of the other homes that you'll see on this property. Are they, whoever this $1 million home is, going to allow a swale of water to run behind their home? So my concern is that by your giving permission for this to be filled, it's now an official wetlands that is somewhat controlled. But this swale that is, in some engineer's mind, will work, that assumes that the homeowner will continue to service it, will continue to keep it open, will allow for this drainage to happen over the life of their owning that home. And I just, my concern is that, again, as I said, by giving permission for this fill, it throws it back to the planning board that says, you've now given your imprimatur onto this that says, yes, indeed, we give permission to this fill, and then it's who controls that anymore? It sounds like while it's still a wetlands, it has some control.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I guess I was concerned that your property, and that not to your, it's just how it would be draining off of your property onto here. So if, but that sounds like that's not the case. So if it sounds like, as long as the drainage, this constructed drainage could actually improve the situation out there for you, as long as it's maintained now. And that's a good point. But this is really a planning board issue, and they often do have maintenance plans and other things that would be required for stormwater conveyance structures. And I think that's beyond the scope of this for us tonight. And I guess my one comment is that another comment would be that, and the fact that now if this wetland was filled in, they have more ability to create a structure to control the flow of water versus a wetland which can't be altered. I don't know if that makes sense. That's one thought I'm having about this. Any other comments?
I just noticed that, as Dan said, it looks like this cottage is 58 feet by 68 feet, which is about 4,000 square feet. That's a big place. And I would want to, I don't know, I feel funny about saying, yeah, it looks like they should be able to fill this. But to say just fill it and let it go. Because I just don't think, somebody's got to, and it may be the planning board, but I'd like to try and make sure the planning board sees it. Because look at the contours, say that's going to drain right off the roof somehow and bump down a couple of feet and come right back into Dan's pond. I don't know how we do it, but in other words, it seems reasonable to fill the wetland, but not if it's going to cause trouble.
So, the way you would do that is the two things that you've suggested tonight. One is, instead of signing to authorize expedited review for the wetland application, you recommend approval with conditions. And then two, to attend the planning board meeting and ensure that this, if that provides you assurance, or send a memo to the planning board, but recognize that, it's not really the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. But, you have a good relationship with the planning board, so you could send a memo.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. I agree. Why don't we come up with what conditions we want on this, and we could send that to the conditions would be in a letter to DES.
Yeah.
So a comment letter to DES, and we could also copy the planning board.
Sure.
Maybe would be the easiest way, and somebody could attend the planning board meeting on this. If I don't want to volunteer anyone, but that could be another good step. So our conditions are that the constructed swale captures all water coming off the property, so that no water is expected to flow onto an adjacent lot. With consideration of extending the swale further behind the house.
Yep, that's fine. Yep.
That's what we've discussed. Does anyone else want to add other feedback, other comments on this? Everyone's quiet. Okay. Should we vote?
Can we just, I'm a little lost on where we are with regard to the specific motion. So,
yes, we need a motion before we vote. Thank you. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
So, in Kristen's recommendations, we're no longer doing a suggested motion for state wetland expedited application. Is that correct?
I think it is, because that's how it was submitted. So I think we still are.
Yeah, if you don't sign the wetland application, it will not be processed expeditiously. It'll just go through the normal review process.
And that's fine with us.
So our motion would not be what you had recommended. It would be a different motion, correct? Because this motion is specific to an expedited application.
So it would match the second. Yeah. We have reviewed this application and recommend the wetland application be approved with conditions as noted below. Okay. And then form those conditions.
So I will move that that we have reviewed this application and recommend that the wetland application be approved with the condition that the constructed swale capture all of the water coming off of the property so that a butter's property would not be affected.
Bill just seconded it. All seconded it because Bill was muted.
Oh, okay.
I still can't hear you, Bill.
Doesn't look like he's muted anymore, but we don't hear him. We can't hear you, Bill. So as soon as a motion was presented and seconded, are we ready for vote?
Before you vote, so I don't, I mean, there may be other drainage features associated with this, this lot, so drip edge and things like that. So maybe the constructed swale and other drainage features for this lot or something.
I think that's a good addition to the motion. I'm okay with that. Bill, are you okay with that?
Bill's okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Great.
Seconded.
Are we ready for a vote then? So I'll just go through our list of names. Carlos?
Aye.
Sally votes aye. Drew?
Aye.
Dave Short?
Yes.
Bill Campbell? Could you put your hand up because I can't hear you? Okay. Trevor?
Aye.
And Ginny?
Aye.
So it's approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Dan, for your comments. And we will continue to watch this, and we'll have to draft a memo. Kristen, we can work on that. Should be pretty easy. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item. We are going to continue our conceptual discussion on the parking lot / car storage at 10 Holland Way. And this is part of the McFarland Ford dealership. We had a discussion about it last month, and some design changes were made to it, and they've been in our packet. I hope folks have been able to look at that. We can bring them up here too. I can share my screen, or the presenters can share. We have Jim Gove, who's also on this project, and we have Chris Lane, who's also maybe presenting. And Eric, are you involved in this one?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so I will hand it over to you guys to present on this, and I can share my screen if you want me to. Just tell me.
If you wouldn't mind, if you allow me to share mine, I've got my plans pulled up.
Even better.
Perfect.
So, okay, there we go. So while Eric is showing you some of this stuff, I just wanted to let you know that we heard you loud and clear. And so we've done some significant reductions. So Eric, why don't you go ahead and show what's going on?
Yeah, I have it showed right now, Jim. So we took a long look at the comments we had from last meeting, and we put our heads together and looked at the previous design. And the previous design is more of a traditional parking field. But what we're really looking for here is inventory storage. So we decided to try to condense the site down and still provide the adequate amount of storage we're looking for, but really shrink that footprint down and pull ourselves away from those buffers. So this was the previous design we had before you. We have traditional above ground drainage features, pretty traditional looking parking field. But what we've decided to come before you tonight with is a drastically shrunken down system where we have double row inventory storage. So this is really space for Ford to stack their cars and their trucks, and the employees will be able to have access to them. So there's really no need to have a more traditional retail style parking field. We can still accomplish what we're looking for and also get those drops and the impacts to the buffers. So the previous concept we had approximately 14,600 square feet inside the 100-foot buffer. This new design, we are at about 6,300 in the 100-foot buffer. So we have a big drop in that 100-foot buffer impact for relatively the same amount of parking spaces. We decided that we would drop the amount of parking 5 spaces. So we were previously at 136. We're now at 131. So we reduced the parking a little bit. One thing that did for us was we were able to get out of that little wetland pocket. If you're looking at the plan to the far right of the parking field. So we were able to sneak out of some of the wetland impacts, drop the buffer impacts down, and still come at the parking field from the same location. So the wetland impact on the entrance is the same, but be able to really shrink this down and hug it more to the road to get away from that wetland prime. Jim, do you have anything more you want to add to this?
Yeah, a lot, actually. Excellent. If you'll notice, we have absolutely no detention basins there. Mm-hmm. So one of the key elements of this is we do not have any impervious surface in any of the buffers.
Correct.
This is going to be all porous technology. We've done the test pits out there. It turns out that the test pits show that we can absolutely put in the porous technology. So when it talks about, I think the ordinance says something about no impervious surface within so many feet. We have no impervious surface. This is all pervious surface that's going to be built here. So that's a pretty significant impact or lesser impact to what's going on here. You'll notice that we're out, not just out of the 50 feet. A lot of places we're even outside of the 75 feet. And we're really pushing really hard to get out of the 100 foot. And again, no pervious structures. There were a couple other things that you asked of us to check into. And Eric, do you have those some of those other attachments that got sent out regarding the location of the stream and what would actually be the what we actually be looking at as a proposed
let me see if
under the because we have a proposal here to put the rest of this into easement. Okay.
I have the overview plan.
Okay, well, the overview plan's a start. Okay, so this is the, oops, that's not the overview plan. Okay. All right, so the overview plan, it still doesn't show it too well. There we go. All right, so this overview, essentially, what we have going on here is, well, that's far enough back.
I have a lag on my computer. I'm sorry.
The area of what we're suggesting as putting into easement, deed restriction, or however the town would prefer to have it, it would be this area that remains. And of that area remains, that's an 18.7 acre parcel to remain, of which 14 acres is wet and 4.5 acres is up. Now, there was some question as to just what that area was actually made up of. And so the wetlands themselves are both a combination of forested wetlands and shrub wetlands. And in addition, there is an area that has been identified out here more or less right next to the area of conservation that's already held, that's actually a peatland. And then other areas around it are noted as northern swamps. I'm reading now off the wildlife habitat cover sheet for Fish and Game. The rest of this area is a hemlock hardwood pine mix, and then right along the uplands, there's also in the uplands as the Appalachian oak pine mix. So there is diversity out here, has value, and the stream actually goes that we talked about, and there was some question as to where that went, and that goes behind the Hannafords, down through Ostrom, underneath their drive, and then bypasses the Exeter Reservoir and actually connects with the sluiceway before it goes under, or just down from the sluiceway, before it goes into underneath Route 108. And I think, hopefully, the commissioners got those attachments that I sent, and including the pictures. So I think we've done a lot here to actually listen to what the commission had to say, and try to do our best to make this really work for both McFarland Ford and also for the commission. So,
yeah, I would add, we did do test bits, like Jim said. The water table on those came in at about 2.5 to 3.5 feet down, which is good, because that really opens up the option that we put before the board tonight with the porous pavement. So with that kind of separation of water table, we'll be able to get in our select materials and produce these areas of porous pavement and design the parking field to sheet towards these porous pavement areas, and then allow that water to infiltrate down. The main driveway into the area would be standard pavement, but once we get into the parking field, we would utilize, like Jim said, those porous pavement sections in those 100-foot buffer areas.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Do we have any comments, questions?
You don't hear me?
I hear you, Bill. You're back.
Oh, good. Where is the culvert under Holland Way that goes to Hannaford's drainage, or the drainage by Hannaford's? Does it come off that where the wetland touches the road?
Yes, and yes. As a matter of fact, and I know I actually took a picture right there. But yes, it comes right at that at the narrow point. It kind of has a little point that sticks out, and that's where the culvert is that goes under Holland Way and then pops out by Hannaford's.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you pulled back before, there's another little lot up there. I take it that's not owned by McFarland.
Yeah. We don't know who. I don't have a.
I think it's Unitil.
It's a Unitil substation.
Oh, that one. Okay. That one you can't see me. Right. Okay.
Well, I'm glad the porous pavement, this does seem like a good application for porous pavement. I will say that the water table's down. We are in a drought. I don't know if the test pit showed, you didn't see seasonal high water table looked.
No, actually we did it off soil morphology. In other words, we looked for the redox features.
Yeah.
The test pits themselves were totally dry.
Yeah.
As you would expect during a drought. But I was there with Wayne Morrow, and Wayne was calling out the seasonal high water tables based on redoxymorphic features. So I think we have a good handle on where the water table really is.
Good. Again, we are not obligated to make any decision or say anything else at this point. We did comment that we would like to see a revision come back before us. So I think that's partly what motivated tonight's meeting. So I don't know, this is not an official approval, so we don't need to make any motions or anything.
No, all we really would like to, we aren't looking for any kind of like commitment, okay? We wanted to more or less come back here, and whether you want to call it a straw poll or just a feeling as to whether or not the commission thinks we're on the right direction. Because if we're on the right direction, then, and obviously we can make modifications still here. But if the commission thinks we're on the right direction, then, we got to make commitments. Now we have to actually say, okay, so now we got to do design. We actually got to put together the dredge and fill. We actually have to, do more than just, have a pretty picture here, even though we've done a little bit more than that. So we know that our porous pavement will work. But it just kind of does the commission feel that we're kind of going in the right direction is what we're looking for right now.
Yeah, I guess I feel like the old design did feel like a traditional parking lot, and I certainly didn't feel comfortable with the traditional parking lot with the stormwater catch basins in the buffer and all that. So having it be more efficient use of space with the double parking, to me, that's a benefit. Having the porous pavement's a benefit. And then you get rid of the stormwater catch basins or the stormwater features. So it seems like a win. And I mean, in terms of getting an easement on the rest of the property, that's also a win. So there's some things I can get on board with. I still don't love parking lots in or near wetlands, but I understand there's some need for more cars. But that's my gut reaction here. I don't know, other comments?
Yeah, I'd echo Drew's sentiments there. I mean, seeing parking lots in wetlands and buffers always makes me sort of cringe a little bit, but I definitely have to give it to you because I was pretty rough on this project the first time it came before us last month. And you've all done a tremendous amount of job incorporating a lot of the feedback, I think. I mean, cutting buffer impacts in half already, speaks to you really going back to the design board and putting something together that really tries to pull out of the wetland buffers. And then the fact that porous would be an option here, I think is a great opportunity and certainly something that makes this project a little more palatable.
I agree with what Trevor and Drew have said. It's not perfect, but it's an improvement on what we had before, and I think that's very positive. The reduction in the square footage and the porous material and the reduction, well, that's related to the square footage, but that right margin, if you're looking at the map, the fact that that's gone and that gets away from the buffer. There is still the question about the driveway and really going through the wetlands, and I don't know that there's any way around that, but that's something we would look at carefully when a proposal came before us.
Yeah.
Carlos has his hand up.
Yes, so I agree with what's been said. Much improved. That area is kind of a little, it's isolated. I know up in there's been some nests from great blue herons in one of those wet areas. But thinking about more what Bill was thinking about, where it drains, where the culvert goes, anything that's going to improve connectivity or at least maintain connectivity without the risk of running over the road where organisms may get run over would be important for me. Anything that facilitates movement off of that, in terms of impact on the brine wetland, I think it's way improved over what it was.
I concur with what's been said, and there, if you're going to allow the parking. So, and I do apply.
It looks like you're muting in and out, Bill. I'm not quite sure what's doing that, but.
Yeah, sorry.
I wasn't sure if that was me or not. Thank you, Trevor. You were coming in and out a bit. It might be your internet connection.
Well, yeah, I had that problem before, but I see it flashing too. Anyway, I agree with what's said.
I think someone just brought up a good point. There's no way to access this parking lot off of Holland Way rather than avoiding that long driveway to connect directly to McFarland Ford. There would be no way to have a small driveway connecting directly to the parking lot across the green buffer there into the parking lot to avoid the direct impacts. I don't think we talked about that last time.
That's a good idea.
It's my understanding that Holland Way is a controlled access road in this location, which would make it quite a challenge to attempt that, which is why we decided to stick to the access driveway that we already have functioning for McFarland Ford and just try to connect into that. With Holland Way being controlled access.
Well, I think that if you could control the access with a gate, I mean, you're not talking about, this is not a public parking lot. So if there could be some agreement made to, I mean, that might be something that you ask. I think in terms of approving a direct wetland, if you can avoid that direct impact by coming off of an existing road, like why create a second road that parallels an existing road just to shuttle cars to a parking lot occasionally?
Mm-hmm. No, we can look into that.
Yeah.
The other aspect of this too is what we haven't. I don't think there's been any kind of like look at the design of the size of the crossing and what we could do there in terms of size of structure that might be able to be put in, and to provide lesser impact there. So that's one of the aspects that we need to really focus on. Right now, it's just basically it's a couple lines with some squiggles on it. So we haven't really thought about yet or looked at that kind of crossing and see what we can do there.
Yeah.
We focused mainly on the reduction of the parking and the actual, going for the porous. So
we absolutely will, as the project flushes out, look into those kind of mitigation options as they kind of come before us as we dig into the design. As the design progresses, if opportunities arise where we can be proactive with making reductions further, then we'll jump on them as they come. And like Jim said, in regards to like the crossing, this will be a full design. I'll do a full hydraulic analysis pre-post, make sure we're not adding stormwater to any culverts or drainage systems nearby. We'll know the condition of that pipe, the size, the type, what kind of flow it's seeing, and take a good look at how water's moving around in this area.
Ginny, you have your hand up?
Well, there's already an exit onto Holland Way, so you'd be closing that up. McFarland Ford, when you come out of Hannaford's, there's an entrance, already an entrance to.
Is that the entrance at the corner we're seeing?
Yeah, so that's McFarland Ford's and Holland Way entrance. So that's so we are planning on bringing our driveway over to that direction, and between that intersection and our proposed driveway, you can see that small parking field there. We would use that to carry our traffic flow over to the Holland Way McFarland Ford intersection, and then utilize that one access point. Is the current design.
So, and snow storage, or not necessarily snow storage, where would you do? That's a big drive, it's a big parking lot. Where would you put your snow?
Well, this is the great part about, porous pavement. It actually, there's one thing that really happens is the porous pavement really melts very, very fast.
With all the cars on top?
Well, remember that, they have to clean off the cars, they have to move the cars and everything else. And we'll certainly look at snow storage and where it will go. But I have to tell you, that's one thing with porous pavement is we don't have like the massive snow piles that you see in other places. It just plain melts very, very quickly and goes into the porous. The porous pavement continues to function throughout the course of the winter. And one of the key places you can see that happening is if you go down to the Lowe's there, right in Greenland, and you swing in, half of that entire parking lot is porous, and you'll see there's a big difference in terms of that storage of snow out there.
Yeah, I would take a look, or urge you to take a look at it.
Well, you just muted for some reason, Bill.
Yeah, it keeps going off. I don't understand. But DOT must give you at least one curb cut for that lot. I would think.
Hi, Dean. Hello?
Don?
Hi.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous about a second driveway cut, because now you're going to have the main entrance to McFarland, plus you're going to have a driveway cut, and then you've got a good amount of traffic coming in and out of Hannaford's. The traffic moving down Holland Way goes at a pretty good speed now. I'm not coming from a conservation standpoint. I'm coming from my planning background. This may not be an ideal location to put another driveway cut, even though it's limited. We have permitted before driveways that have had to go through the narrowest sections of wetland, because that is the only viable way to gain entrance to the property. So that's not unheard of to do that. I'm just a little hesitant about adding another driveway cut. We have to go across a right-of-way, and I don't know who maintains that right-of-way between Holland Way and McFarland. That's the town, or is that the state? I would I would not be a fan of pushing a second driveway cut as an alternative, from my opinion.
Okay. Thank you for that. It certainly was an idea and may not make sense, but it seemed like a good way to avoid direct impacts. All right. Any other ideas before we wrap this one up? All right. Jim or Eric, any other questions?
I want to really thank the commission for, first off, a really good review last time. I really want to thank the commission for a great feedback. We've got a lot of things that we can move forward with and think about in great detail. And so I really do appreciate the feedback that the commission gave us on both of the meetings. So thank you.
Yes, I second that. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
All right. Thank you guys for coming back and doing a lot of work quite quickly, I would say. So it's interesting to see this progress.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right. We're moving right along. Do we need a stretch break? I might. Whew. Item 3, McDonald Gate seasonal closure. I want to turn this one over to Kristen Murphy.
Thank you. So as I indicated in my memo, last year we did seasonally close the parking lot at McDonald Conservation Area. This is the Linden Street entrance to that collection of conservation parcels out there. And it did serve, we had very minimal complaints because people were able to head in park right up to the gate. So the property was still usable. So I guess I would like the commission to consider seasonally closing that again. It does cut down, it seems, on the number of calls to Exeter Police Department for concerns of parking lot misuse, and seemed like it worked well last time around.
I have no objection to that. I've stopped by there a few times, and there's been very little, well, there's been some activity, but people sitting in cars and having lunch or something, and people must be walking because the cars are empty. But I don't see any problems. So
I agree with Bill. I don't see any problems particularly. I mean, I see the benefit that it cuts down on the calls to the police, and we know that area had been problematic in the past.
But I'd go with
favor as well.
The main reason not to permanently close it is to allow for people to park boaters, like canoers, to have easier access to the river in the warm summer months. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was not a problem this summer.
And fishermen.
You couldn't go anywhere.
Couldn't go anywhere, yeah. And there's some down trees around there. I don't know. Yeah. The river's not super easy to navigate in that section. No.
That's a major fishing area.
Major fishing area in the summer.
So from early spring throughout, depending on water levels, you get an awful lot of people who want to walk down there and go fishing there upstream and all the way down to Willie's to White's Meadow. Mm-hmm. It's a major access point for fishing, always has been.
Yeah.
Now, when you close it off at this time of the year, you're going to close it off for people who want to go in and hike, because where are they going to park?
Well, there still will be parking against the gate, as Kristen brought up. That
very limited.
There's 3. How many cars can you fit? 3?
At most 2. Yeah. 2 carefully parked cars.
Carefully parked. That leaves me out.
Okay.
Well, I will suggest that we do it again and just pay attention to whether we're getting complaints about people not being able to park.
Sorry about that. I got locked up.
And then we can revisit it. But I'll move that we follow Kristen's recommendation and have a seasonal closure of that parking lot.
Yeah, and there is parking at the other end. You could put a note there that there's park access from the other end on Court Street,
right? Yeah, Court Street.
But it's not off-road parking either there.
Well, there's more space there that's off-road, yeah.
You want to set dates for that?
Yes.
Seasonal, I'm not sure what that means.
So we opened it in early spring to allow for fishing. I can't remember the exact date, but we could just close it for now, and I can come back to you with what those dates were. But I want to say it was like early to mid-March or something thereabouts, when we were able to get volunteers to maintain the gate. So the gate has been closed in the evening, which has helped at nighttime activities out there, or curtailing nighttime activities out there. And that's been occurring through volunteer support. Every single day, someone goes over there and opens the gate and closes the gate. So I can look to see what those dates were. Maybe it was April. I'm not entirely sure.
Could we make that December through April and have it so we give people notice?
Yeah, so one thing that seems to happen in the fall is there seems to be fall cleanup dumping there. And I don't, people are dumping brush and stuff. There's been a couple complaints about that. So it's up to you guys, but that's why I had thought November, but.
Okay, I would support closure from effective immediately through the end. Do we want to say, is the end of March too late? Well, Don, when would you recommend fishing starting in the spring?
Well, again, it depends upon the season. There's really no closed season for fishing in the rivers. Literally, one can fish all year round in the Exeter River, in that area. But in the spring is when the state does stocking, which then brings out the heavier fishing pressure. Again, it'll depend how high the water is, how cold. I've been down there myself in some seasons toward the end of March and fished, because it's been a very warm winter, the water hasn't been too high. Typically, it's going to be early April, on the average. I mean, if you close it to March 31st, I think it'll be fine. Or April 1st, whatever.
Okay. Why don't we, I would support Sally's motion and maybe amend it to say we close it effective immediately through March 31st. And maybe we can make a note to just bring this topic up at our March meeting and just confirm on the status there. But otherwise, we'll plan to reopen it, assuming the volunteers are back in place. And I just would thank our volunteers who go out there every day to help manage this property and keep it open for folks.
Good. I would accept that revision in the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
You ready for a vote? Yes? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Carlos?
Aye.
Sally votes aye. Drew?
Aye.
Dave? Is Dave still with us? Dave Short?
Dave, it looks muted.
We'll come back to Dave. Bill?
Yeah, aye.
Trevor?
Aye.
Ginny?
Aye.
And Dave, are you back with us?
Yes, aye.
Okay, so passed unanimously. And those dates are effective immediately to March 31st.
Good.
Okay, excellent. Okay, next we are going to have a short look at our bylaws, which we are supposed to review annually. And so we're due. I'll share my screen. It's on page 51 of the packet. If you have your packet somewhere.
Yep.
Okay. You can see I'm sharing my screen, it looks like. There are two things we wanted to bring up. One is the role of alternates on the board. And that's highlighted here. In general, we've had sort of a hierarchical, seniority-based approach to when alternates vote. It was brought up that there's no particularly good reason for that, and other than it's easy and that it's a convenient thing. So I don't know if we should develop a better system or a different system where we rotate alternates. We pick alternates somehow and inform people ahead of time. If we know someone's going to be missing, that, hey, would this person like to vote this time, and then check them off the list and then march through it. So our alternates always get an opportunity to vote.
So I would, I think that it would increase the feeling of participation of alternates if we did a rotating thing rather than always going on a seniority basis. So I think that we should consider that.
We could alternate our alternates.
Yeah, we can alternate our alternates, exactly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for the same reason Sally brought up. I think it just encourages that participation too.
Yeah, right. We're all one commission here. We don't need a hierarchical structure.
Yep.
So we have one, and it certainly is helpful and needed at some level. But
having said that, though, I think that our alternates do a very good job of voicing questions and comments when, with whatever comes before us, even with or without the voting. But I agree.
I agree with that. Thank you, Trevor.
This is Kristen. Just speaking from my experience, since I'm new to this commission, I'm glad that I have not been called on to vote yet. So although I appreciate a forthcoming opportunity, I also appreciate that I've been just able to listen and understand how you go back and forth on things like that. So I don't know, maybe have not a trial period, but maybe come to so many meetings and then you vote or something. That would be, just from my perspective, helpful.
Yeah, perhaps we can go with it, but if somebody doesn't feel they want to vote, they can say no, and Andrew can move to the next person if we have some sort of cycle. The reason we've had it that way is just what Kristen alludes to, is that the person that's been an alternate the longest time has had the most experience, and but it doesn't have to be that way, especially after people have been alternates for a year or two. So I'd go with the proposal and with the fact that an alternate can decline, not refuse, decline.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The alternate can feel free to pass on the opportunity, but at least they would have that ability.
Yep.
Okay, we don't have a draft language in the bylaws. Maybe I can try and work on that.
Well, I think that, the way the bylaws read now, it's at the chair's discretion.
So maybe we don't even need to.
Yep. So our practice has been seniority, but we can change the practice without having to change the bylaws, I think. So long as everybody agrees that this is the direction we want to go.
think Drew should have a dartboard with all of the alternates written on it. And like he just turns around and is like, who's it going to be? Whoa!
All right, I have a dartboard. I can run down to the basement. I've got everyone's name and I'll...
Perfect.
All right.
Don't even need to change the language. Just write in dartboard. And we'll know it. We'll know what it is.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I'm pretty good at darts, so maybe I could actually aim, you know. All right. All right. So it feels like I don't know that we need to vote on this. I don't think we need to vote. So let's move on to the next one. We're not changing the bylaws.
Yep.
We did add an additional section. It came. Kristen, do you want to talk about this?
Sure.
Conceptual discussion and how we feel like it might want to be in the bylaws.
Yeah, so most of your procedures and responsibilities are kind of defined in RSA 36A, which talks about wetland application review. And though that does have discuss a process of an informational meeting, it seems as though it would be best, you know, and this was kind of spurred by the last meeting, there seemed to be quite a bit of benefit from conceptual discussion for both the applicant as well as members of the commission. And so, just to be sure the Conservation Commission is covered liability-wise or whatnot, we want to be sure that there is a process defined in our bylaws for that. And so, I drafted something. I modeled this after the planning board conceptual discussion, which is much lengthier and more detailed. But it seemed like simplicity would still suffice for the commission in this case. So, you know, they define what materials should be submitted and things of that nature, and that just seemed really complicated for the Conservation Commission's role. So what you see in front of you is kind of a thinned out version of what the planning board has.
Okay. I can read. Why don't I just read it quickly? Conceptual discussions. Prior to a formal application submission, the commission may meet, if requested, with a potential applicant who anticipates submitting a formal application for review by the commission. The purpose of the meeting is to generally discuss the project concept and any potential issues in order to help the applicant revise and improve their application before it is submitted. B, such consultation shall not bind either the applicant or the commission, and statements made by the commission members shall not be the basis for disqualifying said members or invalidating any future action taken. Commission and the applicant may discuss proposals in concept form only, and neither the applicant nor the commission shall be bound by the discussions. It's a little wordy.
I appreciate having that language in there, though.
I agree.
That really touches on the protection needed for those kind of discussions, especially when we're talking about, you know, like the plans that were brought to us over the last 2 months.
Yeah. I think it's a good addition. I have no objection to the language. Thank you for drafting it, Kristen. It reads like bylaws, you know. That's the way bylaws are.
Do we need a motion then, Andrew, on this one?
I think we do because, well, I think, see right here, these bylaws shall be reviewed annually and revised as needed by a majority vote of the commission. So I don't know.
I'll move that we add this section to our bylaws.
Okay.
As written.
Carlos, you seconded it?
Yes.
Any other discussion? Let's vote.
Okay, Carlos?
Aye.
Sally votes aye. Drew?
Aye.
Dave?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Trevor?
Aye.
And Ginny?
Aye.
Approved. Unanimously.
Excellent. Okay, our next topic is the e-bike policy or the electric bike policy. Kristen, Dave Short, how do we want to address this one?
Well, I could give some.
Dave's muted.
Oh, okay.
Why doesn't Kristen start and then Dave, you can go next.
All right.
So the popularity of e-bikes has been increasing. And just to be clear, these aren't like, motorcycles. I hope you had an opportunity to look at them. There's varying classes of e-bikes, but they look like a traditional bike with, a small motor attached to it, that the pedaling action kind of creates the power that then then the bicycle can propel itself. So I had a couple inquiries about whether the Conservation Commission, whether e-bikes were permitted on conservation land. And my initial response was no, but when I started to really look through our policies and regulations, I realized, that's my interpretation of it and it's not yours. So I think for the sake of clarity, it would be helpful to understand how the commission feels about this, and frankly, to adopt an official policy surrounding that. From my perspective, I felt okay saying no because the Conservation Commission, in terms of land management and property management, does make choices when one parcel, say Henderson Swayze or the original Henderson parcel, there are additional parcels that contribute to what we call the Henderson Swayze Town Forest. Those may not have similar restrictions, but we do defer to the more protective regulation and apply it to adjacent properties. So the Henderson parcel itself does have pretty specific language that I think is very clear, and it basically prohibits motor-propelled pleasure vehicles. And so for that property, it seems pretty secure, but that also abuts Oakland's, and so I just would like to have the discussion more formal, a more formal decision about what that policy should be. Dave, you want to jump in?
Well, and as you alluded to complicate it further, there's different classifications of e-bikes. There's ones that are you have to pedal, but they can be power assisted. There's also ones that can be totally, I guess it's not a throttle, but similar to that, where there'd be no pedaling required, and they can move along at a pretty good rate, 20 plus miles an hour. So I guess my concern is, well, two things. Walkers and hikers out there, the potential for even just a traditional bike, you got to show some courtesy. If you start motorizing it and putting people out there that maybe don't have the physical abilities or the experience of traditional riders, I think there's the potential for bad things to happen. But then you're going to go back to how do you enforce it all?
Don, it looks like Don has a comment.
Sure. I prefer to take a hard line on this. Let me give you a couple of my reasoning. One is that I agree with Dave entirely here, because now you put different classifications of people using the trails. Also, the fact that how do you manage different classifications of e-bikes? Now you got a management, You got to manage, well, is it this kind of an e-bike? Is it this kind of an e-bike? Who controls that? Who manages it? That becomes very difficult. Anytime we talk about whatever putting in regulations, one of the first things we talk about is how are we going to enforce it? It's going to be very difficult. It's now also, it's one of my favorite Conservation Commission members, no offense, Bill, Charlie Pellerin said, it's once the eye of the camel sneaks under the tent, the whole camel's coming under the tent. And second of all is that when we brought the bikes in, bikes now started making trails by their own nature wider and more erosion. Now you bring in some kind of classification e-bikes, I'm sure the trails are going to get wider and get more eroded. I think you're going to lose protection of the trail itself by increasing the kind of motorized activity. These are very difficult trails too, some of them, and I just think I just don't think it's a good idea. If we wanted to encourage people to use motorized trails, places like Kubi Road, places that are flatter, places that are already wide, places you've got the Rockingham Trail. You've got areas that can happen. These people aren't forbidden, locked out of places. But I mean, to put them into our town forests, our trails, whether it be the Oaklands, whether it be Little River, I think really is a disservice to the people who have enjoyed the trails, who want just a nice quiet walk or a hike. And also, whoops, one of those spruce bugs just flew in. See, there he is. Or do you want to? I'm distracted by a bug. I'm sorry. Anyways, so that's my 2 cents. Maybe 3 cents actually.
All right, Sally.
So I don't disagree with the points that have been made. I'd like to add a point which is on the other side, which is I don't know all that much about e-bikes, but I have talked to certain people that are, shall we say, older, and they have found that e-bikes allow them to keep biking, which they otherwise would not be able to do. And so my understanding is that e-bikes they don't throw off noxious fumes and they're quiet. So as I say, I don't disagree with the points that have been made, and I would be inclined to keep it for simplicity's sake that we not allow e-bikes. But I think looking ahead, it's something we might want to consider in the future as e-bikes become more and more popular, and as they're used more and more by people who could not continue to bike without having that additional assistance.
Drew, just another thought, especially since last March, and even prior to that, the intensity of use on the trails, and this kind of follows what Don was saying about trails widening and things like that. The intensity of the use is really ramped up. And if we start making it easier to introduce more users in a different manner, the trails are already suffering. And if and that's said by somebody who is a pretty frequent user of those trails. But it's at some point we're getting to the point where how much is too much. So,
Drew, do you want a motion again for this?
Yeah, my one question would be, let's say I'm an e-bike user and I have the kind where the throttle can be turned off, so it's optional. Can I bring my e-bike to the town forest and pretend it was a normal bike with the throttle off?
Well, that goes back to the whole enforcement issue. Who is going to be out there enforcing any of this? It's kind of it's a tricky one.
Well, riders, I mean, you will see, I'm sure if there's a rule that the community will self-enforce at some level.
This one, I'm not so sure about. It's kind of controversial in the biking community already. So, there are certain uses out there that, in general, the users out there, I think, do a great job of self-policing, showing courtesy to other users. I'm absolutely astonished at how little trash there is out there. I almost never see any litter. But I think this gets into a whole different realm. So the self-policing, probably not so much.
I still think if we posted it that there were no e-bikes, at least we're saying that. And if people violate it, there's probably not a whole lot that we can do. But at least it's our policy. And Dave might change his mind in about 20 years, but right now I think we should do that. We should pass the motion now before he gets there.
All right.
So I will move that we not allow e-bikes on conservation land.
I would second that move.
Would you restate your motion, Bill?
Just that we not permit e-bikes to be used on conservation lands that we oversee, I guess.
Kristen, is that clear enough?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, so that was seconded. Let's vote.
Carlos? Carlos, you're muted.
And unmute. I am in favor.
And Sally votes yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Trevor?
Aye.
And Ginny?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Okay. All right. E-bikes. Well, do we want to discuss how to implement this, or how do we post this? Do we need to post it?
I think, am I locked up?
You're okay.
Oh, okay.
We can hear you.
I keep going in and out and getting kicked off, but so I can update the land use policy that's on the Conservation Commission's web.
Now you've locked up, Kristen. So we can update the website. That would be good. Dave, do you have any other ideas?
I think that's a good place to start. Signage, I think would be helpful, but I think you're also going to see that very prone to being vandalized.
Yeah, I'm almost not inclined to put up a clear sign about it at the moment, but.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. I mean, I've seen a few bikes out there. It certainly hasn't been a tsunami, and I can keep an eye on that. And if it looks like it's really starting to build, then maybe we have to revisit this.
Yeah, or talk with NIMBA, or I don't know who would be the right person to talk with about it. But
yeah, I'm not sure what NIMBA's policy on e-bikes is actually, but I can look into that.
Or that Facebook group that advertised. that's maybe a whole nother thing. Maybe we don't want to get into Facebook, but some ideas. Well, we can talk more about this later. Why don't we keep moving? Unless anyone else has any good ideas for this. Okay, treasurer's report and end of year expenses. Kristen sent out the treasurer's report, although I think it's in the packet somewhere. Thought I saw it on page, yeah, it's on 56.
Yeah, sorry about that. There was no change from the first one that I went with the package and the one that I sent out later.
Okay. I can share this, I got it up. So, do we have any updates? We approved a bunch of expenses last month, Kristen. Is there anything else you'd want to discuss here?
Yeah, so we have not yet approved the dues for Esserlac. Am I saying that right, Don? So I propose that you consider $150 to the Exeter Squamscott River Local Advisory Committee and $150 to Southeast Land Trust. And then just by way of update, and Dave can elaborate on this, but he went to go buy trail materials with the funds that were approved. And they ended up donating that and more for supplies. So we had approved $200, or you had approved $200 last month. We no longer need that for wood for trail supplies. So I don't know if others have additional requests, but this would be a good time to get any final requests out there. And then I suggest you consider, you had already voted to submit some of the funds to purchase clapboards for, I don't think I say that right, but clapboards for the Rains Barn, and any additional funds could go toward that. I think the benefit of doing that is if we do apply for an LCHIP grant, we can use any expenditures a year prior to the grant application or in the previous year of the grant application as match. So you would almost be doubling your money should you get the LCHIP grant by doing that.
Sally?
I would like to have the commission consider purchasing another wildlife camera to be used at Rains, and the rationale would be twofold. One, it would be interesting to see, other than what we observe, what wildlife we have there, but also I would use it to get a sense for the use of the property. So we'd be able to know how many people come just when there's not an event, which I think would bolster our case for LCHIP. Right now we have no way of knowing what the use of the property is other than a sort of haphazard way. So I don't know what the expense would be. I did a little bit of searching, and there seems to be quite a range, but Kristen, maybe you could give a ballpark of what that amount would be.
I don't know, Sally. It's been a long time since I've looked at the prices of game cameras. I think the one that we have, granted, I think it was purchased in 2010, was around $100.
Yep.
So I don't know what you discovered when you were looking.
Yeah, I say, the price ranged from, there were some that were less than 100 all the way up to, I didn't go too deep, but $350. So I would say up to 200.
Yeah. I just purchased one, and I'd say between 2 and 3, you get ones that would be good enough. The cheaper ones, you'll run into some issues.
Yeah.
With what they can do and how they hold up.
The other point I would make is that we wouldn't always need to keep it at Rains. We could move it around if we wanted to see what was going on at other conservation areas in town. I love the shots that that Kristen shared with the one that we have monitoring the activity under the 101. So I'd like to see us do that if we have the money.
Well, we have at least that $200 that was going towards lumber.
Yeah, so Conservation Land Administration, I removed the $200. So the planned expenses do not include the trail material allocation. So there's $348.84 in there. Community services, which is kind of the outreach pocket of funds, there's $109.
Okay. So any other comment, any other expenses before we make any motions for expenses? Anything else?
I'd have moved that we allow up to $300 for a trail camera to come out of Conservation Land Administration.
Second.
Okay, that sounds great. Let's vote on that, I guess.
So I do want clarification. Do we need to vote on each of the items separately? I believe that's what we did in the past. So we have 150 for the and the 250 for the membership fees.
I was taking it all out of conservation land.
No.
We voted on the dues, correct? So did we? No, we didn't.
No, we haven't. We've got to do that.
We voted on the dues. Okay. All right. All right. I'm getting ahead of myself.
All right.
This would just be for, we had a motion and a second for the game camera. So why don't we vote on that since that's on the table?
We're ready to vote on that?
The dues.
Okay. Carlos?
Yes.
Sally votes yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Trevor?
Aye.
And Ginny?
Yes.
Okay, the camera passes unanimously.
Do we need a motion for, well, how do you say it now, Dave? Don? Whatever it is.
Surlac. I motion
Surlac.
50 for
There's an
Surlac.
S in there now, though, isn't it?
That was a great debate when the Squamscott River came in. It's Ezralac. Ezralac.
Okay, whatever. I'll move that we send them their dues at $150.
Second. Ready for a vote?
Yep.
Carlos?
Yes.
Sally votes yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave? Are you with us, Dave? Dave, okay. Bill?
Yes.
Trevor?
Aye.
Ginny?
Yes.
That passes. Esferlac. What did you say? Esferlac.
Esferlac.
Esferlac. The next was
I will say $150 for SELT.
second.
Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, let's vote.
Carlos?
Aye.
Sally votes yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Trevor?
Aye.
Ginny?
Yes.
Passes.
Do we want to approve anything, any remaining funds that are left over for the clapboards for the Rains Farm as Kristen had brought up? Can we?
I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah. Where would that come from?
could we approve it at the next meeting based on the actual expense of the?
Yes.
Okay, we'll cover that next month. All right.
Kristen, a question though is we have $1,000 for expenses on the building. If we use that money outside of this budget, it's for lighting and things like that. It's for maintenance.
Oh, she froze, I think.
I think. Well, maybe I can ask. I can check with her after the meeting, tomorrow or something.
Say your question again, Bill.
Do we have there's a line item under buildings or someplace in the budget for maintenance of repairs to Rains Farm? $1,000. Well, all of a sudden I've lost it.
Yeah, I think she's having internet problems and she's getting kicked off.
Oh, I just got kicked off, but I'm back.
We see you. We hear you.
You're okay.
Well, I can check with her tomorrow on that. Julie, you don't know off the top of your head, do you? Obviously. And I don't know if we've spent any of that. My impression was that things that we've asked Jeff Beck to do might have gotten charged to that account. So it may
I think DPW has been, and this is our next item, is that dashboard that's put out, and she did note that DPW made minor repairs to button up the barn for winter. So I believe they are in control of that budget. Is that, I could be wrong.
No, you may be very right. I know when I was chair, we got the money put over there, but
they would only be responsible for it if this becomes their job forever. So I would say no.
Okay.
Yeah, they did do the just to clarify we had a problem with pigeons. At the barn because it wasn't buttoned up and there were places where they could get in, and DPW has done that repair work. I'm not sure about where the money came from, so we'll have to follow up with Kristen when we can. Right. And then there was the other thought, which we've already talked about. We'll decide next month, is we'd like to keep up with the minor repairs until we are able to get if we're successful in getting the L-chip to do the more major work that needs to be done out there.
Okay, excellent. So we have our committee reports in terms of property management. That was one. Is there anything else at Rains? I guess the other thing mentioned here is that there is has been some ongoing work. I know that tree was removed that we voted on last time. Was by the road.
Yeah.
That elm tree came down, and David O'Hearn has been working on the front field encroachment removal.
And Ben Anderson had volunteered to do some encroachment work on the backfield and cleared up to 12 feet, which is really a great improvement. Looks great out there. And I think we have a good partnership with him for work at Rains, which is working out quite well, I think. And he also had events at the Word Barn, which he donated some of the proceeds to the Rains Fund.
Yeah, there was $120 donated.
Yeah.
From his Halloween event.
Yeah.
So that was successful.
Very successful. And we are looking to have another solstice event out there at the solstice, the winter solstice. and planning a cleanup date for November 21st. We haven't put the word out yet, but we are working with the Historical Society to categorize and display the items that are in the barn that actually are part of the Historical Society collection. And Ginny and I are meeting with them this coming Saturday to discuss that.
Okay. And their interpretive signs, is that for?
Yeah. So the interpretive signs are the
historical items.
Yeah, for all the items that are stored out there, most of which belong to the Historical Society. So the idea is to have posters that describe for people that visit the barn what the items are and where they fit in the historical picture of the barn use, or the eras in which the barn was used for agriculture. So we're working on that, and I think it's going to be a positive thing once we get that done.
Excellent. Kristen Murphy's back and looks a little frustrated. Welcome back.
I am also connected by phone because we seem to be having some problems. So I don't know if they can admit me by phone. I don't know how that works, but
we can hear you now.
Oh, I see you. You're on.
Yeah,
you're on now.
603-479-4000.
Yeah, you're on the attendees list.
So when we lost you, we did have a question about the work that DPW had done at Rains. Was that an expense that we incurred, or is that something that DPW covered?
So my assumption is, so the $1,000, that's when I blipped out, but the $1,000 that was moved from the Conservation Commission Rains maintenance account was moved into the building maintenance fund for Rains. And I believe the repairs that Jeff made came from that, but I don't have the dollar amounts on that. Yeah.
Okay, so there may be some more funds in that account for this year.
Yeah, I don't know, because I think the light may have come out of that as well, the exterior light of the barn.
Okay.
And I don't know about the mowing around the structure. I'm not sure. But I will find out for the next meeting.
Great.
Okay. Well, I think that covers Rains for now, unless there's anything else. Are there other property management items we want to talk about, Kristen?
Yeah, so did you finish up the budget stuff?
Or finish up the budget? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to give one update. I did hear today from David O'Hearn. We have a contract with him to clear the brush around the perimeter of the field. He anticipates not being able to complete $500 worth of hours of time out there. And so because we do have an existing contract with him, we can request those funds to be encumbered so that they can stay with the contract even if he doesn't complete it for this calendar year. But that's something the select board has to vote on. So I just wanted to make sure you were supportive of submitting that request.
So just to clarify, that would carry over to next, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good move, yeah.
If the select board, Julie, is open to such a item, that seems in our favor, but if they're willing to deal with $500, I don't know if there's an amount too big or too small.
As long as it's pre-contracted, that's all we need to hear. And then if it's a worthy project, which this is, that's all we need to hear about.
Okay, excellent. So we don't need a motion or anything. You just, okay.
I don't think so.
Great. Yeah, he sent an email. Wasn't there? I didn't get there were pictures. He sent. Maybe we could share.
He sent a picture of the otter toilet. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, so he did some, so he was exploring kind of the marsh between Rains on the south end, where the water drains in between the wetland that's there out to the Squamscott River. And he sent a picture of, otter scat or otter, I don't know, it's upchuck, I guess. He sent, I guess otters repeatedly do that in the same location. And so he referred to them as an otter toilet, but you could see the fish scales in it. And so he shared that as something I could post on the Facebook site. And I just haven't gotten to it yet. But it's cool to see. It's neat to see signs of wildlife on these properties.
Excellent, thanks. Is there any other property management? Carlos, did you do a work day with UNH students? Do you want to talk about that? Or
we got snowed out. I went out there and I did a little bit of poking around in the snow until my hand was frozen. It unfortunately got canceled.
Okay.
So yeah, the invasive pole's probably done for the year.
I have one, excuse me, one thing that may fall under property management. I don't know where it falls. Kristen, did Greg Bisson ever talk to you about golfing?
Yeah, he did.
There, an issue came up at this select board meeting about folks golfing, driving, putting, I don't know what, on at the recreation field and also Brickyard Pond. And it was, it got a little heated, I have to say. So I put out the question, maybe there's some piece of property in the conservation land that we could dedicate some chunk of it to this. But I don't know anything about, the conservation easements and the rules of, the rules of the road for the different pieces of property. So I asked Greg to get in touch with Kristen. So just so you know, that might come up.
So I did respond to Greg. I'm super unstable, so I'm going to turn my video off, but I did respond to Greg. The concern that I had is, it's not uncommon for, did I lock up?
Right. You're good.
Okay. It's not uncommon for us to find golf balls, on conservation land when you're monitoring, you kind of come across them. But to encourage that kind of use, I mean, you're basically taking a person-made item and putting it into conservation land, which is depositing something that decomposes and all of that. So, I can't imagine that would be an approved use. And I responded to Greg to that effect.
Yeah, I just had to throw it out there because we hadn't heard an answer back yet. But I figured that would be it. So thank you anyway. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I did have a couple, two things I wanted to update. It sounds like you may have talked about one of them when I was booted off, but the Tom Cregan email, did you talk about that?
No.
So we know that there's beaver activity on the Stone property, and he had sent some photos of some of the large trees that recently had come down from the continued beaver activity. And he asked, he referenced the potential for getting a trapper out there, but I did convey to him that the commission wanted to allow the natural process to happen. That's part of that's a benefit of having it as conservation land. You don't have to manage nature. And then the other thing I wanted to update you on is Riverwoods. So as you know, we've been working to get the conservation easement established for Riverwoods. It has been pretty complicated because they needed to do some adjustments with the gas line easement that passes through the property. And so that required quite a bit of additional survey effort. But I've met a couple different times with Sharon Summers, who represents Riverwoods. We have the language for the easement. You reviewed it and approved it and recommended acceptance to the select board. That language has been finalized. Riverwood signed off on it. So she's just cleaning up the document. We'll send it back to me and I will send it to legal counsel for our town perspective, for our review. And then there is some challenge with getting the meets and bounds description and the plans to reflect the parcel all on a single sheet. It's the way they had it set up was very challenging to figure out it was just very challenging. And I saw that it would be a problem when we're trying to monitor it. So they're doing some work on that. That part of it probably won't happen until mid-December, because survey crews are really backed up. But we could initiate legal counsel review once I get the language and at least start that process. And then it could just be a quick cursory check of the meets and bounds description once that's finalized. So as long as legal counsel is on board, then the easement would then go to the select board for their review and hopefully acceptance. And then authorization from them to Russ to sign on their behalf, or the select board could sign the document individually. So I know I get pretty inquiries inquiries about the status of that, and I just wanted to be sure you all were aware of where that stood. It seems like it's taking a while, but there's been a lot of effort that's gone into getting us to where we are right now.
Yeah, that's great. Was there anything else, Kristen?
I did have something for trails and outreach. Did I miss those sections?
No, we haven't.
Okay, nope.
We just really did rain. We left the budget and went to talk about rains, and then you came back.
No, those were the only two things I wanted to highlight from the project tracker sheet.
Yeah, I think this is helpful. Okay, anything else on outreach, or we're not doing a lot right now intentionally. Unfortunately, that's the way it is.
So yes, and is Nick still on? Oh yeah, Nick's here too. So Nick has continued to participate with Parks and Rec on the kids hiking program. Hi, Nick. It sounds like it's been really well received. Do you want to kind of give an update?
Sure. Yeah, so I've been able to lead, I think, 3 hikes at this point with the group. I think Kristen had them last week at the Oaklands. But so far, I think it's been a big hit. The kids seem to really enjoy getting out on the trails. I've made a couple scavenger hunts for the kids to kind of keep them engaged, have them looking for different types of things. And I think all in all, it's been a pretty good collaboration between the rec department and the Concon. So I think it's a big win for the community. I think it's a big win for the kids. And hopefully with the climate that we're in with coronavirus, it can be something that can be continued on throughout the winter. So I'll leave it in the rec department's hands to come up with that plan, but I think it's definitely been a big success.
Yeah, and so there's 2 more sessions, weather permitting, but tomorrow or Thursday, I'm taking the kids to Henderson. We went last week to Oaklands, and we're going to Henderson Swayze this coming week, and then the week after that is Morissette. And we'll probably have time to cross the street and do a little Linden Commons loop as well. So it was really fun. Last week was the first time, and the kids just had a great time. Like, they learned about wintergreen, and one of the girls was hanging back and kept sniffing wintergreen. We had to get her to come forward and catch up with us, but it has been a neat collaboration. And so I did want to raise that Parks and Rec did reach out with an interest in extending something over the winter, and some concepts. Nick had some great ideas for Rains Barn. and also just, snowshoe hikes and things of that nature. So I think there is a great opportunity to continue this sort of thing. David Tuvey from Parks and Rec had talked about the potential of maybe it not just being kid focused, but sort of family oriented activities, and possibly like a version of what the commission had talked about for open barn days, where, it's just kind of free play in the field it rains, and maybe some cocoa inside the barn or something, but no details have really been worked out. But David wanted to be sure that the commission didn't feel like your toes were being stepped on. We want it to be a collaboration. And so I just wanted to let you guys know about that. And Nick, I think you had some great ideas for rains. I don't know if you wanted to share that, or if you want to wait.
You're putting me on the spot now. I have to think back to all the great ideas that I've thrown David's ways. I think for me, I'm partial to rains because I can walk there. It's basically, there's a trail in my woods to get there. So I'm always thinking of things that I can do with my kids on that property. But some of the ideas that I threw his way were snowshoe hikes. I had like a Winterfest idea, getting outdoor performers, or, a snowman contest, a sledding event, all kinds of things that you could kind of just bring the community together and at the same time kind of educate them on the property and the history and the wildlife. There's just so many great things that Rains Farm can, open kids' eyes up to in nature. So I don't know if there was one in particular that David brought your way, Kristen. I don't know where the communication led, but I think every week I'm probably throwing a couple ideas his way just to kind of, keep the wheels turning. But
yeah, no, that's all great. I will say that with the kids last week, I was like, so what was your favorite place that you visited? And they were all like, Rains Farm. So they really enjoyed it.
Nice. Glad to hear it.
Great work. This is awesome to hear about.
Yeah.
Great program.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Are there any other things we need to talk about there, Kristen, on the dashboard? There's something about wilderness first aid with...
Oh, yeah, I don't have a ton of details on that, so I'm not sure that I can share it. So Greg Bisson from Parks and Rec is interested in offering a wilderness first aid training program, and asked what properties might be good for people to kind of hone their skills on. And it's unclear to me if this is like an independent study, and so they just need a place to like go and, I don't know, learn how to build a shelter, or, I really don't have enough details at this point to talk about it. I need to connect with Greg. So I'm hoping, I don't know what his timeline on that was. I hope it can wait until December.
Yeah, I think something like Morset could be a good property. I've taken a course like that, and they probably just want some space to practice, like litter carries, like through the woods or something like that. They need space to practice first aid treatment on pretend patients with maybe some fake blood at the most.
Yeah, and he did say, obviously they're following leave no trace process. So whatever they do, that it's not like something would remain on site.
Yeah,
I didn't really see a concern with it, but I didn't really understand.
So I guess they would want to propose the use to us if they wanted to come. I guess we would want to hear about it. Maybe not. If they have an actual date in mind.
Yeah,
it might be something we bring up later.
Okay. And then I did have one more item. This is for trails. The president of the Homeowners Association for Linden Commons reached out. They're interested in doing a kind of a joint trail trail care day out there. They said that the connection, so Linden Commons has kind of one main trail that goes from Linden Street and more or less along the parallels the river, but there's also a trail that cuts into the Linden Commons property itself, kind of where their lawn clipping corral is. And so they were wondering if there were members of the commission that wanted to come and lead something or help with that sort of thing. And it seems like we are kind of having a mild, I should knock on wood, but a mild winter so far, or fall. So I don't know. It seems like there could be time to do that one weekend in the short term. So I didn't know if commission members were interested or where you wanted to take that. I think it's important for us to build the relationship with Linden Commons. You know, it's a pretty high value conservation area that is very close to homes. So I really do like that they reached out to us.
Yeah, I'd be interested in helping out. I walked it just recently, and I'm slowly working on putting together a management longer term document to go with that property.
Great.
And so I'd be interested also in contacting people there.
Great.
And I know one of the bridges got knocked off its base, and that could use a group of people to move back on. That happened last spring, probably. And that other trail does need to be reopened.
Okay.
Yeah, I could give Carlos a hand with that also. I'm pretty well tied up till the end of November, but after that, I would have time with our mild weather.
Yeah.
I'm always
Great.
happy to help too.
Great. So I will connect you all with her to work out timing.
Any other events going on or things to talk about? Anyone? Okay. Let's go to the minutes. Our favorite part of every meeting. Do we have any edits to the minutes?
I just noticed that section 3 and 4 in the minutes are they're just kind of sparse. Like just reading through them, so 3. If you go to number 3, for instance,
conceptual design.
The two conceptual. Yeah, it was the two conceptual designs. The first, so number 3 is the parking lot, and if you read through that, I mean, I feel like we had a really long conversation and a lot of different points, and a lot of them weren't really captured here.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing, that there's large portions of the conversation that are missed. And I don't think we need all the detail.
Yeah, but maybe just even bullet points. I feel like there was a lot of, we talked, I know we talked about the size of it. We talked about it going into, I know we talked about the porous pavement. That was a big, so the fact that the last one says they were coming back to address the concerns, I think it would have been nice to actually sort of know what those concerns were, because I think to the credit of the applicants this month, they did a great job coming back addressing our concerns, so it would have been nice having those written out. And same, sort of the same with 4 too. Not as much, but I guess in the last sentence there, I'm not quite sure what I was talking about. Like I said, probably could get 500 to 50 to 100 feet because it is a redevelopment, but I don't know.
Probably, 100-foot buffer, 50 to 100-foot buffer.
Maybe if Daniel could kind of revisit the video on that and add a bit more detail, and we could bring them back next month.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Fine.
Yeah, and I just happen to notice on 3, I had the question on where that drains from and I think the answer was that it does not drain into the town water It drains below that, and that's kind of important.
Yeah, that
Allison brought up that
is
map.
factually wrong.
Yeah.
Yep, Allison pulled up the maps, and we discovered that during that meeting. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so let's. I think it's mostly items 3 and 4.
Yeah,
everything else to me seemed okay. I did have one minor correction on the site walk minutes, which we could vote on. Which was that there was also in it, and I didn't tell you this, Kristen. There was we should amend it to add that the owner actually is not the owner, the potential owner of the site was also present at that meeting in addition to Jim Gove and Christian Smith. And I don't have his name, but we could add the potential site owner.
I can get it, yeah.
But otherwise, I guess we could move to, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes unless anyone else has other feedback for the site walk.
I'll second that.
Okay, and I guess we just, only the people who are there should probably vote. Is that right? So I will vote, or Sally, do you want to do the roll call?
Yeah, so Carlos, you were there, correct?
Yes.
You approve, I approve. And Drew?
I approve.
And Dave, you were there?
Yes.
I think that's it.
And Bill?
I was there.
Oh, and Bill?
And yes.
So all in favor?
All in favor.
All 5 of us. Okay, and we will table the other minutes and get a redo for next meeting. Is that good? What else? What else are we missing here?
Next meeting?
No correspondence.
Correspondence? Is there any other correspondence or other business?
The only thing I was thinking of bringing up in correspondence was we did receive a letter from DOT. They're planning on doing some resurfacing of 101 from, I don't know the exit numbers, but like the Hampton Road and all the way to Newfields Road. And so they inquired if there were any mitigation. So it did not state that there would be wetland impacts, and it was elusive as to whether there would be, but it was kind of like, if there is a need for mitigation, please let us know what your mitigation preferences were. So I had suggested writing back to them and letting them know that the Conservation Commission does have a list of parcels that could be used for potential mitigation. I don't think there will be any impacts of that threshold. And then I also raised the fencing issue under 101 and 85, even though it's one more exit up. Those are things that we could write back to them and suggest. I had emailed the I forget what their title is, but she's kind of like a resource specialist with DOT. She's kind of on the environmental side. And I had written to her just to see like how likely it would be that they could jump an exit and do work outside of their project purview, but I haven't heard back yet. So I think Jennifer Perry had some ideas because it went to the select board, I believe, and I don't know what other departments, but she also talked about maybe some removal of Phragmites along that area, anywhere within the work zone. So to me, it makes sense for the town to send one letter in, but I don't know if you had other concepts that I haven't mentioned that you'd want put forward. I don't think I don't think the resurfacing project would be to the level of requiring wetland mitigation. So I think property purchase is probably off the table, but if there's some smaller things, it would be good to know them.
I like your suggestions.
Okay, great.
Okay, any other? I guess I'll just say that I know the work that Lindsay did. There was a subcommittee with Lindsay and Trevor and Kristen and maybe Allison that was working to prioritize any potential mitigation projects. So we had that more queued up. So I think that was good work by that group, and will help this type of response in the future if there is mitigation. I don't know if that committee has any other thoughts.
I mean, I guess my only thought is, it was imperative that we had that, or important that we had Lindsay's expertise helping us there. And, that really was the catalyst that got us moving in the direction of getting the list of properties. So I can't tell you how appreciative I am of that effort. That's great. And I know one of the workshops I attended, it was the wetland workshop for NHACC. She talked a lot about the importance of having kind of that list of properties in order to have local mitigation first, and that DES prefers to see the funds stay local rather than going into the ARM fund if there are viable projects.
That was the one with Cheryl Bondi?
No, it was
Martha Tilton.
Mary Ann Tilton.
Mary Ann.
Because the one I saw was with Cheryl Bondi about mitigation, also mapping. It was very good. I'll have to look at my notes to find out what I learned, but not tonight.
Okay. Yeah, that in New Hampshire ACC was this past weekend, and some of us had participated in that, so that was good. I have the Zoom recordings, so I asked for those, so we have that if we want to get into that later. But I guess unless there's any other business, I think we've passed our expiration date for tonight. And I just want to thank Lindsay again for her effort. And I don't know if there's anything that you did, Lindsay, in that effort that you could share with Kristen, or if there's any shape files or anything like that you still have that we would benefit from. But hopefully we shared all that information, and we can pick off where you left off when that needs to get updated.
Certainly, and I'll stay in touch with Kristen, and if you guys have any questions using it going forward, please reach out to me. I'll still be available.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll see you sooner than later on something. Okay.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So our next meeting is scheduled on the 8th of December with the submission deadline of the 25th. Is that the day before? That's the day before Thanksgiving?
Yes.
So you got to get it in a little early, people, if you're listening right now. You got 2 days, two days lost there. Because of the holiday. All right. So with that said, we will take a motion to adjourn. I always forget. Do we need a vote, or we just adjourn?
No.
Yeah, we do. All right. So I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Carlos?
Aye.
Ally says yay. Drew?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Trevor?
Aye.
Ginny?
Yes.
We're adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
meeting, Drew.
Yeah.
Okay. We did it yet again. And have a good night, guys. Stay safe.
Good night.